and the mechanisms for how to expedite. We're looking at both the state and the federal levels because we have rigs and existing laws. So Surfrider did sign on to a petition to the Department of Interior leases off California and expedite that process. But there's a lot of, so earlier this week, or was it last week, I testified to the California committee. They held a special hearing on the oil spill impacts. And I was really pleased to see the interest from multiple senators who showed up in legislation and ways to expedite the ending strategy around the best way to do that. And finally, this feeds into our just climate action. And so, there are many of those that would argue that, yes, low-hanging fruit, and we need to be good allies in terms of ending onshore. And so there's some important and exciting developments happening issues as well. So I think I've probably talked enough, but if there's to head with the program and we could have some dialogue on the chat. So thanks, and I'll turn it back to Laura.
That was terrific. Does anybody have any questions for Pete? Some time for questions as it relates to Pete's presentation. Laura, did you want to ask Pete a question? You're muted.
Okay, thank you. Hi, I'm Laura Hernandez. I'm on the Port Hueneme City Council and wanted to hold a panel discussion on this very issue figure out how much knowledge was out there in terms of how the Ventura County is involved. And I've been looking at the OSPR area contingency for Surfrider Foundation in there, and I didn't see it anywhere in there mentioned. So I'm kind of agreement with Department of Fish and Games or with OSPR so that you are.
That's a great question. And actually that was something Fish and Wildlife. And I believe actually she was with Santa Barbara Channel Keeper government. That's one of the things that she's recommended to us is, sadly, for the next oil spill, Surfrider plans in getting involved with that. And, the oil spill.
That's great. Yeah, that's a great item that you bring to the table. You can share with us in things that we should be on the lookout for or things that we should have an accidental spill, an oil spill. Yeah,
I think, well, one of the things the agencies have said, so they've been applying that, for better, for worse, Surfrider spills, but the Gulf spills. But I would say one thing, like as a city council leader, getting volunteers trained on the front end. So once the spill happens, they want to be able to plug people in right away. And what happens during those first couple, in the Senate hearing, Mayor Carr, the Huntington Beach mayor, diplomatic, but she was also frustrated that, they were getting mixed reports and agencies could have given better information more quickly to them. And I appreciated the agencies, Chuck Bonham, the director, sort of response program underneath that, they're going to be looking at lessons learned. So I think like what happens during those first few hours is that can clean up some of these issues or improve them. That will be important.
I'm just concerned, like Joan and I had informed our emergency management community is on how the plan unfolds, pull together a panel of emergency management representatives to meet and discuss the response, just to walk them spill. We got tar balls and oil washing up on the beach. What's the federal authorities who are going to be in charge? How do we incorporate organizations like issues? Really important. I thought the same thing when you told me that these volunteers had to go through the 16-hour hazmat course. I've been through that course on how to deal with an beach oil spill or an on-land oil spill. I think those classes are pretty. It's maybe there's yes.
At the end of the meeting, Laura, I have a slide, some contact information for the training and kind of like the protocol of how over that. And maybe if you have more questions, then we can address those specifically.
Thank you. All right, thank you.
All right, sure. You're welcome. I can
stop sharing my screen and then you can show that slide. Yeah.
Thanks, Pete. No, it's okay. We'll show it at the end because I heard, and it is Maggie Hall. And Maggie, I missed you when you logged in or when you checked in. I'm sure you're out there. The Environmental Defense Center. They're based out of Santa Barbara, and as Pete mentioned, that they're doing some really wonderful work with some offshore oil drilling. Yes, I can hear you. Great. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. Happy to join the conversation and our work on offshore oil. So I'm happy to give a little bit of background about offshore fracking, as well as ExxonMobil's effort to resume production from offshore platform decommissioning for those interested in a timing update on what's happening there. And of course I can touch a little bit, some images. I don't have a formal PowerPoint, but I have some images I'm happy to share as we go. So it's just me talking, and I know you have a lot designated to this, or okay. Great. So yeah, so for those of you who don't know us, we're the environmental representing nonprofit organizations here in Santa Barbara, and our work spans Santa Barbara, Ventura, 1969 oil spill. So very much part of that original environmental movement. Offshore oil issues. In the 90s, we had a historic case where we were able to, and then lately we've been litigating this issue of offshore fracking. As I think my second year at EDC, I was, we heard there was, you know, this sure enough, the beach was covered in oil, and it ended up being, you know, a major catastrophic event. County, of course, there's a lot of lessons we're trying to share with other organizations, namely you guys. So I'm happy to, let's see if I can share my screen here a little bit. Share. One participant can share at a time. Okay, there's more options here than I'm used to.
Laura, can you make her a co-host?
I did. She's a co-host.
Okay, well, normally when I click share screen, it just lets me share.
Do you want me to?
It's asking me, normally I go share screen. Oh, here we go. It was asking me for some advanced options. So.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Great. Okay, let me see if I can control it. Okay, so yeah, just a little bit of the history of the oil spill. And then the Refugio spill, which the damage was part of fishing grounds or fishing areas and miles of contaminated cause was external corrosion. In our case, it was actually an onshore pipeline that had ruptured. And some of the key problems there was there was no automatic shutoff, or Gaviota pipeline was actually in Midland, Texas. And clearly the corrosion aftermath, we saw some substantial class action lawsuits that some are still pending, criminal case and felony charges as well. The NERDA process, you know, play out over time. We were intimately involved in that. And then also, so that's just to touch on the spill. And then when the Plains All American pipeline ruptured and got an emergency trucking permit, and that was denied. So now they are before the Santa Barbara for a trucking application, which would, as well as 166, which is a narrow 2-lane road with a history, quite a few significant impacts. And at the recent Planning Commission hearing, another hearing with findings for denial. So we are currently advocating before denial of the trucking project to the Board of Supervisors, which will vote on it when they're here. Our current battle is actually the second hearing before the Planning Commission is actually the item will go to the Board of Supervisors. So we are fingers application, which would basically right now these platforms, these three put it that way. In addition to requesting denial, we submitted an exact report that was prepared for this project. And we have impacts of trucking oil. In this context, they only looked at direct impacts road and whatnot, and they failed to look at any of the foreseeable impacts from actually resuming production of these platforms. Completely undermined the scope of impacts that needed to be addressed. So hopefully, you know, if the environmental impact statement will not, or impact report will not be certified, so that will be a moot point of that. So this is the route of the trussing facility, and that is the route that goes all the way up on the 166 road there. We would not want increased tanker trucks on, which could be for 24 hours a day. I'm going to skip over some stuff here. This gets a little more intense. Is the timing on that is somewhat delayed. We don't expect they're supposed to is not anytime soon. They're in the very early stages of environmental review for that project. And I wanted to just show you high-level picture of these in case you haven't seen the main platforms that we're talking about on the channel. These are the ones that I just mentioned is operating. And of the 23 platforms in federal waters offshore are being scheduled for decommissioning. So we're in the early stages of what decommission. Agencies are preparing a programmatic environmental impact statement so that alternatives to various methods would involve. So at this point we have, and we expect an environmental impact statement to be released in February. So the other case that I wanted to touch on is our efforts back in 2011. I think I can just stop sharing. When the practices of fracking were kind of starting to get popularizing these practices offshore. So we launched an investigation under the freedom of the platforms that we're operating to see what's really going on, because the agency just kind of rubber stamping permits and really not providing a public. In that review, we uncovered at least 51 permits that had been recently approved of acidizing, which is just as concerning from an ecological perspective. And we were able to reach a successful settlement that required for fracking and acidizing at the programmatic level at all platforms offshore California. So that includes Santa Barbara. Unfortunately, what they produced was a very cursory analysis, quite a few known toxic carcinogenic chemicals that are used in these practices. The operators are allowed to discharge these frac, and they have never actually studied what the effects of these toxic. So that was like, this is the first time there's ever been an analysis, but it actually never has a single study of toxicity impact. Filed a second lawsuit challenging the EA. And this time we also brought a claim, actually 25 threatened and endangered species that they've identified that might be affected. California also filed a lawsuit against the federal government, claiming that they didn't Punishment Act. The federal government's fracking and acidizing might affect the coast. That case, we actually, they did not settle. We went to that was in part in our favor. The court found that they prohibited fracking and acidizing until they complied with the law and the Zone Management Act. But we also wanted more environmental analysis, did not rule in our favor on that issue. So all the parties appealed to the Ninth Circuit a couple weeks ago. So we're waiting now for a decision, but we're essentially asking for allowing these practices. Because our first lawsuit, we asked them to not predetermine whether they were going to allow it or not, look at whether they were going to be. They kind of shockingly included that there are no significant impacts. Everything was completely unfounded assumptions. Like, we don't think that fracking will happen more than 4 times a year in California waters or federal waters offshore. But we had 8 instances of fracking for just one company in 1 year. So then this is so important in terms of, big picture, looking at oil in the channel, is because all of these platforms we're relying on aging infrastructure that's sorely outdated, which is why we're having issues. Actually just work to extend the life of these platforms. So it's kind of like where the oil companies do these enhanced recovery methods, is to get at the oil that would otherwise be only prolong the use of these outdated infrastructure. So new host of environmental impacts, like using these toxic chemicals in the marine environment. So and we will see what the outcome of that is. And I touched on almost everything I was hoping to. We're really looking forward to working from the previous spill and also just bigger picture, efforts to try to out of operation and eliminate the risks associated. So I'm happy.
Thanks, Maggie. Thank you so much. That was really informative. And I honestly was pretty unfamiliar. And then it just kind of became a deep dive to your organizations, kind of in the middle of it. And we really appreciate the fact that you for us. I was wondering if Pete had anything to kind of like back, kind of like Pete's feeling is on your presentation.
Well, I thought it was super informative. So Maggie, I didn't even know you were going to present tonight. So I'm in the next half an hour asking you questions about decommissioning and NERDA, but I'll spare.
Well, we want the updates. We want the cliff notes on that next conversation. Does anybody have any? Got a lot of updates to share as well. So, but if anybody has any questions.
I have a real quick question for Maggie, and I also want to start off by saying thank you to you. And just hearing a blip of your life in the past 6 months sounds like of these things, working for the environment. So what I wanted to ask you is how up with all the hard work you're doing, where do we go to kind of see what happens and it's on the groundwork?
Yeah, great question. We'll definitely alert our or anything timely. So if you're specifically interested in that case, then you can definitely sign up for, on Instagram and Facebook. And then since we're going to be partnering with Surfrider, connect you with some direct information that comes out of that as well.
Yeah, we'll be doing like monthly blog posts on this for a long time. So on our national website, yeah.
Great. All right. Well, thank you so much. So next I want to introduce Jim Hines. Howard for joining us again, Jim. We've always appreciate listening to what you have going on. So what's going on?
Thank you, Laura. Thank you very, very much. And it's always great to, you do such outstanding work. I just marvel every day when I read about your work at the river and Paul Jenkins' work on the Hall Dam and the Managed Retreat Program, et cetera, et cetera. So thank you all. And then before I begin, Pete, I want to assure you that your partnership with the Environmental Defense Club's local chapter, the Los Padres chapter, which is Ventura and Santa Barbara County, has been using EDC's local years now with great success. So you are in very good hands legally with the Environmental Defense Center of Santa Barbara. Offshore oil that I've been working on behalf of the Sierra Club. Last week, United States Senator Alex Padilla. He's the junior U.S. Senator from the state of Korea to fill the term of then U.S. Senator Kamala Harris, who of course became the Vice President of the United States. And we had issues. He's introduced our bill to protect wild and scenic rivers in the Los Padres National California in the U.S. Senate, S 1459. And but then we offshore oil drilling. That same day, Senator Padilla, along with Senior Senator Interior Secretary Deb Haaland, asking her to revoke all planned onshore BLM coast region of Kern, Ventura, Santa Barbara, and San Luis Obispo counties. Then we got into the offshore in many ways. What we've experienced here on the south coast of Ventura and Santa Barbara County, rupture of Platform A up until the Refugio one a couple of years ago, and the leaking pipelines. And of course, this recently shows the power of the United States Oil Petroleum Institute to do whatever they want and escape any kind of jurisdiction, local, state, or federal mediation or mitigation. And it's going to take lots of lawsuits, lots of litigation, many others around the state of California and across our nation for that matter. Will do everything in his power to make sure that legislation that his office will in the United States passes. But there's when we run into a wall. It's done right now with an eye to the 2022 elections, the entire election next year. And everybody looks around before they do anything to see how it will impact their reelection. Oil industry, I can tell you, is heavily involved in Washington, D.C. Can't tell you how many times office that oil company people aren't coming in the other door as well. So it's a day-to-day thing there. It's sitting here in Ventura and Santa Barbara counties who will rise up and put pressure on, start to see what is being done to our environment, what is being done to the future of our children and grandchildren, petroleum industry in the United States. It is time to get off of fossil fuels and get onto the clean. A lot of work. It's going to take a lot of voter turnout. There's already money pouring into local races in Ventura and Santa. There will be 2 issues on the ballot in June of 2022 that the oil industry pushes, that the Ventura County Board of Supervisors put on the oil industry. This is onshore, of course, where the county had put on several years ago on the oil industry to clean up its act, so to speak. This measure put on is asking the voters of the county to overturn the County Board of Supervisors' decisions. That does not happen, and those 2 measures are defeated. Senator Padilla's Sierra Club has been working for several years to protect offshore resource, a large protected area off the coast of Ventura and Santa Barbara counties called the Channel Islands offshore, 3 miles out and beyond. And basically the sanctuary was created in 1980 of Gaviota area in northern Santa Barbara, north of Santa Barbara. There's another large marine sanctuary that protects ocean waters from San Francisco all the way down to about Cambridge, gap in the federal ocean waters between the 2 sanctuaries. We've been working region to create something called the Chumash Heritage National Marine Sanctuary. My urging to the Biden administration to get the sanctuary created. For many reasons, we struggled through the Trump administration. As things go as planned, according to the Office of National Marine Sanctuary in early 2022. The existing oil rig, et cetera, of course, will be grandfathered in, but there will be no new leasing allowed off the Central Coast from Oxnard all the way up into Monterey Bay. So that's what will also allow us to get federal resources to help do research, and clean up, phasing out of drift nets and other dangerous marine mammal killing fishing methods. We're moving in the right direction to stop offshore oil drilling, but because of the oil industry, we have 2 seats here in Ventura County. I live in Ventura County. Next year, one is retiring, the other person is termed out. Those will be wide open seats, pumping large amounts of money into candidates who will be running for those seats. When actions come before the Ventura County Board of Supervisors in future, yet not just national candidates who vote for Congress or U.S. Senate, but hear local voice in things that happen around them, including the coastal cities of Oremi have a say in what's going offshore. We also need to watch the Ventura and Santa Barbara County Boards of Supervisors for protection of the environment in all ways, not just in cases of offshore oil drilling, but onshore production across the Central Coast region. But all powerful people in America. We, if we choose to use the power we have, can turn out, we believe will do the right thing for our environment and defeat those we feel will not. We can walk on the candidates and make our voices heard. We have great lawyers that will go to court on many things, elected officials at the local, state, and federal level. And I cannot emphasize that enough, especially in small city council races, which are important. They're very low voter turnout, and we cannot let this happen. Stake for all of us here. We need to focus on the victories that we're achieving and continue to build, protecting our environment, but protecting the environment not for ourselves today. So Laura, I don't know how much time I have, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, I would love to open this up for questions. For work it out for you. You're so involved with everything, and we really appreciate your perspective and all your hard work. Does anybody have any questions? No?
Hi, Jim. Can you hear me? This is
I hear
Jimmy
you
M
very
with
well.
Seaprog. Wonderful, good thing. Did you mention about the board of super, excuse me, the for where the oil companies put in $1 million to gain the signatures, and we've helped. I think that's going to be a really important one to see whether we allow the oil companies to continue to use their antiquated permits to go after use the extreme extraction methods in Ventura County. I know you're on top of it, but I hope that everyone hearing this will keep track of that and keep safe. And thank you for keeping that on our, as we go idle oil wells and 75 antiquated permits that they're using without any environmental review.
Thank you for your, you and Seafrog's great work. We're pretty clear we'll be partnering with Seafrog to help defeat these two ballot measures in the June election.
Anybody else have questions for Jim? Comments? Go for the technology trifecta here and see if I can get talk more about Laura Hernandez. We'll talk more about what you wanted to. Can you guys see this?
Yes.
Slide? Okay, wonderful. So this is just in front of what not to do as far as data, but I thought it was really important to I had come across while I was preparing for this meeting. And I did want to explain, wonder why, okay, so what happened and how does it happen? And we know that the one that made the call to mobilize the Office of Spill Prevention and Response on this, and you can help explain the chain of command, so to speak, on what happened with Huntington Coast Guard, right? And then we did the initial reporting. Then USFA. Now we're gonna mobilize the OSPR.
It was the California Department of Fish and Wildlife.
California Department of Fish and Wildlife. Okay. And then, so you guys in Beach chapter, you guys were kind of handcuffed, right, for a minute until allowed little by little or other organizations to be involved.
Yeah, I mean, there was a delay in reporting, and so that's a big issue. It hasn't been our primary focus, but obviously that will be part of our diligence. And the Unified Command, it was basically Coast Guard, California, and then Orange County and San Diego County, and having that coordination across governments was really important.
That aren't pre-trained, which obviously are the primary volunteers, and then an expedited training for potential volunteers to do the other volunteer opportunities in case you do want to become involved and aren't trained. And so here you screenshot this or take a picture of it or whatever. So there are different volunteers where you can help if you're not trained. But if you want to become trained ahead of time, there's some contact information. I had asked Ruth Dover from Finley from Channel Islands Marine Wildlife Institute. Pretty buried. The Alisal fire really, I think, is having a very difficult time trying to negotiate everything. But she did give us this information so that if we do want to recruit, if we do want to organize a Ventura County trained to step in and be able to assist in the event of a spill, we can start working on that. I know it might be extensively really an important thing to be prepared for the future. And in case it does happen, wildlife.ca.gov/OSPR, there's a brochure. This is a little bit of the types of volunteers. This is from their brochure to give you guys kind of an idea of what they're looking for moving forward.
Yes.
Did you have any more questions?
I did, Pete. I just wanted to know what that 16-hour course was, because I want to take a look at it.
Yeah, and actually, full disclosure, I haven't taken the 16-hour course.
HAZWOPER, maybe?
I'm sorry?
HAZWOPER, was it a HAZWOPER class?
And so they have managed to consolidate that into a 4-hour training program.
What about ICS training?
We have not.
That might be a good idea, something that I'd be willing to help work on with you online and take the 100 and 200 class and get certified. And it'll just give you basic what structure looks like, where you fit in to the organizational response. So you might want to in my research at the OSPR site and the California Fish and Game, purchasing response equipment, like booms and other kinds of materials you would use. And I don't know if you've considered applying for any of those grants or looking at a place that has a kit or a response equipment is Ventura Harbor. And that's because that we don't have any other location where we have equipment staged along the coastline, along Ventura County. That would be something to look into as well. You need all this protective equipment, the suits and the booms.
The booms,
hazmat booms. Yeah. So
it's something we can discuss with the city of Ventura as well.
And I think it would be really interesting to reach out to Mayor Carr Beach and Newport Beach, maybe invite them to your panel, because they've just gone through some of their lessons and resources.
That's a great idea. That's a great idea. You know, I'm just glad that you guys turn very slowly, and for me to try to put together even this kind of discussion. If we move forward on any kind of panel or roundtable discussion, I think you guys would be such an important element and party to this endeavor. I want to co-sponsor or sponsor the roundtable.
I think that, Laura, I can give you Bill Hickman's information. And I think he would be a fantastic point of contact in this conversation moving forward.
And Laura, I put my email in there too.
And I don't know if you guys know my background, but it was the 14 years, and I've been in emergency management for almost 40 years now. So
your wheelhouse.
I understand how the system is supposed to work. And, you know, when you guys selected this as where you were in the organization, and I couldn't find you anywhere. So I think that's real important that you guys the area contingency plan because of what you bring to the table.
Yes, hi, Jimmy Young, advisory board member of CFRAG. We'd really like to know if you were interested in obtaining these certifications and finding out how we can be
absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, our role would be more on for the Huntington spill. I'll put up a link to our footage and photos that we took, but for scientific analysis. But we're not trained for any wildlife recovery, or you would be interested in learning and being considered if you do put on a round table.
So I'm kind of hearing like next steps being a round table, the training, and OSPR and California Department of Fish and Games. That's kind of what I'm hearing as next steps.
I think
do you guys agree on that?
Yeah, that sounds great. Yeah.
With Maggie too. I think Environmental Defense Center.
Okay.
Yeah, Councilwoman Hernandez, we'd love for you to reach out to both Bill and Next Steps. Yeah.
Okay.
So you should be able to find our info in the chat there. Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much for joining. We appreciate it.
I really appreciate you kind of foundation for being prepared and for understanding. And like Pete was saying, they will be a good model for us to understand moving forward what to expect, what to do. We can be proactive, which I think is incredibly important. And I feel like we need to. I'm not sure. I don't know if they were trying to find someone that could attend. Whatever we do moving forward, I think we should include the Santa Barbara chapter as well. Give them the opportunity. Do you have any other questions? I did the tarball link was on that last slide. Hope it's got that. Don't ask me to put the slide back up. It was like I'm technically drained. So well, you guys are amazing. I really appreciate everyone's input and all of our again for us to really understand a little bit more of what's going on if we need to. Hopefully we won't ever need to. But any other questions? If not, I think we'll just end the meeting.
Thank you very much. Keep up your good work, everybody.
Thank you. You too.
Thanks everyone.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, Jim.